poverty was my gift. Growing up without a father was my gift. Once you take 100% responsibility and you ask yourself, do I like where I am? Socially, emotionally, the amount of money that's in my bank?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, you have to accept that you made an appointment to be there. So since you made the appointment, you could say, I don't want to be here anymore. Everyone is always one decision away from being where they are.
Yeah.
But most people suffer from one thing. It's not poverty, it's not abuse, it's possibility blindness.
You were this impoverished little girl who was finding her way as a fully financially free girl at 12 years old. How did you do that? Welcome to Vault Empowers Talks, where we don't just scratch the surface. We dive deep into the lives of some of the world's most amazing change makers, and today is no different. I'm your host, Brandy Harvey. But before I introduce my guest for the day, I need you to go ahead and do me a favor. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss your daily dose of inspiration and motivation. But without further ado, I get to introduce the queen who is sitting across from me. Y'all, she's so fly, just wipe her down. Here we go. Dr. Cindy Trimm Tomlinson is a world-renowned speaker, best-selling author, business and life strategist, and the founder and CEO of Trimm Ministries International. As a sought-after empowerment specialist, revolutionary thinker, and transformational leader, Dr. Trimm has earned a distinguished reputation as a catalyst of change and a voice of hope to the nations. As an author, Dr. Trimm has repeatedly topped bestseller lists with what have become acclaimed classics, such as Commanding Your Morning, The 40-Day Soul Fast, and her latest book, Unstoppable, Compete with Your Best Self and Win. As the creator of Empowered TV, convener of In Your Year Strong, and the chancellor of Kingdom School of Ministry, Dr. Trimm translates hard-hitting spiritual insights into everyday language that empowers individuals to activate purpose and maximize potential. She has been featured on Good Morning America, Oprah Daily, and Newsweek, just to name a few. Dr. Trimm believes you prepare yourself for success, not failure. Vault Empowers Talks welcome global speaker, teacher, author, philanthropist, thinker, and problem solver, Dr. Cindy Trimm Tomlinson, to the show.
I'm so excited to be here. I mean, you can't see it, but on the inside of me, there's a 2-year-old doing backward flips.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I have to tell people, you know, when you walked in, like literally you brought in the spirit. You brought in such an energy, and I'm such an energy feeler and reader. I tell people my Wi-Fi be on, and baby, my Wi-Fi on today for you. Listen, so I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I mean, you are a global speaker. You were the youngest appointed senator in your country of Bermuda. But once upon a time, you were this impoverished little girl who was paying for ballet and finding her way as a fully financially free girl at 12 years old. How did you do that?
I think it starts with parenting. My mother, unfortunately, lost her parents at 9 years old. And I understand my heritage is a very rich heritage.
Yeah.
Both my grandfather and grandmother were entrepreneurs, and they collectively were multimillionaires back in the day.
Wow.
And so during my mother's formative years, between 0 and 9, before she became an orphan, literally an orphan, she had the roots into, I think, making firm decisions and being an entrepreneur. Her roots were there. And a lot of things, to be quite frank, is not taught, it's caught.
Yeah.
And so she caught something. And although she raised 7 children
Wow.
as a single parent, there were things that she instilled in me that wasn't taught, it was caught. I watched her life. And so I have to pay ode to my mother first for being that woman who understood that if you can take a gift and that gift is extraordinary and you put it in an ordinary environment, something amazing and miraculous happens.
Yeah.
That gift doesn't become ordinary. The environment becomes extraordinary.
Yeah.
And so poverty didn't define my life, but this extraordinary environment, because my mother was gifted and she passed on something to all of her children, and that was to be an upright, contributing member of society.
Yeah.
So she insisted, even though we were poor, that we give back So we started giving back as children. And the scripture says, given it shall be given you. So these amazing doors were open because she helped me to refine this gift.
Yeah.
And it's a gift of empowerment. So
Yeah.
it started with my mother. And I think even today, a lot of times people think that if you give your children this or that, somehow it's going to change their destiny. But the greatest gift that you could give a child is the gift of becoming a mirror. You should reflect the greatness in your child, and that's what my mother did.
Yeah. And you had some people along the way that taught you the power of service.
Yeah.
You tell the story in your book, you talk about the Benjamins.
Yes.
Yeah, the couple, the Benjamins. Yeah. Who
Yeah.
really gave you something that you really couldn't describe.
They gave us an opportunity. It's interesting because everything about our lives are really destiny, altering experience, and it's how you interpret it. I think if we change the interpretation, we change the narrative. And if we change the narrative, we change how we show up in the world. And the Benjamins actually were the individuals that was that catalyst that helped me to change my narrative, that I wasn't a victim of circumstances. I wasn't a product of environment.
Yeah.
And I understood, I had this revelation early in life that if it was going to be, it was up to me.
Yeah.
And that I can make my way successful and make my way prosperous. And that it was all about the decisions that I was making. So destiny comes at the speed of a decision. And everyone is always one decision away from being where they are.
Yeah.
But most people suffer from one thing. It's not poverty, it's not abuse, it's possibility blindness. So
Possibility blindness.
Yeah. So if a person can see beyond where they are, then their feet can take them there. But your feet will never take you where your mind has never been.
Yeah.
And so, helping to give a person a larger vision than what they have of themselves. And that was the Benjamins. They had an assignment.
Yeah.
And they collided with this poor little girl, and their assignment played out, and it altered my destiny. And so I'm paying it forward.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Help people to alter their destiny, to understand that they are not victim of circumstances. They're not a product of environment. They're not a reflection of the stats that government has of them.
Yeah.
We're different from animals. We're the only species that can be anything we want to be at any given time. A giraffe can't do it. A donkey can't do it. A cow can do it. And the other day, someone asked me, well, who are you? And I said to them, I am the highest expression of divine genius given as a gift to humanity
Yeah.
for such a time as this.
Yeah.
They said, repeat it. Repeat what you just said. And that's how I show up. I show up as a gift. I show up to give.
Yeah.
Really, to give up myself, maybe the uniqueness of my perspective. I can't be anyone else, so I might as well be the next best version of myself.
Yeah.
And I think, too, interpreting feelings. You have a thought creates this biochemical, bioelectrical impulse, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so emotion is the interpretation of a thought, but it doesn't stay there. You have a feeling. And a feeling is the interpretation of that emotion, which is an interpretation of the thought. So how do you change the feelings? How you feel about yourself, how you feel about your life, how you feel about your finances. You go back up and you change that thought.
Yeah.
So we are always only one thought away from living the life of our dreams.
Yeah, one thought away. And here you are, you were 17 years old, you had this idea of going to university, and you call your father, and he says, I'm going to pay for it. And he doesn't show up.
Yeah.
He lies to you and say that he's not there, but he really was there. You go to this bus stop, and you say you only had enough money to just get there. And you're sitting at the bus stop, and the Holy Spirit tells you to look up, and you see your father driving off. You said the girl who sat at that bus stop was not the woman who got up.
Was not the woman who got up.
Yeah.
He didn't see me, but I saw myself that day.
Yeah.
And that was I think, watershed moment for me, a destiny-altering moment. And I help people to understand that, everything that happens to you happens for you.
Yeah.
And there's no problem that will come that doesn't point to potential and purpose. So I had to look in, because once a person looks out, and I learned that this day, as long as I was looking outside of myself for help, I imprisoned myself. But the moment I looked inside of myself, that's where I collided with the truth. And the truth sets you free. That little girl that was there waiting for someone to help. And that problem, that crisis pointed to the woman that you see today.
Wow.
You know, it was pointing to the gifts. And I learned that, some people have capacity for your now, but not your next.
Yeah.
And they have capacity for your gifts, but not your greatness. And we all have greatness on the inside of us. And another great person knows greatness when they see it, and they'll celebrate it. So my father rejected me, abandoned me. That day is not like he hadn't abandoned me, but that was the confirmation. He does not want you. And then I had to ask myself this question: well, what do you want for yourself? And it's different from needed. I needed money. And I've discovered that need continues to connect you to lack.
Wow.
But want connects you to abundance. So you have to ask yourself every day, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And this is the power of vision, isn't it?
And not what you need.
And not what you need.
So most people are failing because they're asking
what do I need?
What do I need?
It keeps you connected to lack. It keeps you connected to being a victim. And as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So you got to put some thought into your future. Your past has nothing new to say to you, so stop listening to your past.
Yeah.
Your future is calling, answer. And your future will be whatever you want it to be. So if you don't like where you are right now,
Yeah.
you have to first accept 100% responsibility
Absolutely.
for being there.
Absolutely.
So once you accept
Absolutely.
100% responsibility for being there, the next step is simple and the next step is easy. Right where you are, decide where you want to be. As long as you blame other people, as long as you blame an ex-husband or an ex-wife, or you blame your parents, you will always be a victim of circumstance, always.
Yeah.
But once you take 100% responsibility and you ask yourself this question, do I like where I am? Do I like where I am socially, emotionally, relationally? Do I like where I am, how I feel? Do I like the amount of money that's in my bank?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, you have to accept that you made an appointment to be there. You made the appointment. So since you made the appointment, you could say, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
And then you have to decide, okay, where do I want to be? And that's how I made my first $1 million.
So you made your first $1 million by deciding that I want to be somewhere else.
I decided that day, I am not participating in the realm of poverty any longer.
Yeah.
I made that decision.
Yeah.
And then I reached on the inside of me and pulled out the gift that was lying dormant, the potential that was lying dormant, that God was trying to speak to me the whole time. It's called imagination. Imagination is more powerful than education. Education is the collection of information. Information never changed anything. You have to go from information to application. What are you prepared to apply? But if you apply something new, you have to give up the old.
Yeah.
I was flying into Atlanta a couple of years ago, and, the escalator that goes up, it's like almost 90 degrees, you're going up. And I heard all this conundrum, and it sounded like children and adults. And when I got up to the top of the steps, the gentleman that was in front of me, he was holding a bag, a briefcase. He was holding his coat, so his arms were full. And one of the little kids, must have been about 3, ran up, Daddy, 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 pick me up. And he said, I can't. My hands are full. He could not embrace what was right in front of him because he refused to let go of what he was holding. And a lot of us are holding on to our past, regret, resentfulness, hatred, unforgiveness. You got to let that stuff go.
Yeah.
Because if your arms are full of that, when God brings a miracle in front of you,
Yeah.
You can't embrace it.
Yeah.
When he brings new relationships, you can't embrace it.
Yeah.
So you have to let go of the old in order to embrace the new. And that's the new you too.
Yeah.
And every year of your life, you have a birthday. So you made it around the sun without being an astronaut, without being trained in 365 days.
Yeah.
You made it around
Yeah.
without having the knowledge and the revelation of who you are. Imagine where your life could be 365 days from today's date. If you did that without expansion of energy, can you imagine where you could be with just a little expansion
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
energy? Just imagine if you put your whole mind and heart into bringing a vision, a dream, a goal, a desire, an aspiration, a possibility to pass.
Yeah.
Can you imagine where your life will be
Yeah.
365 days? My last statement. I learned something, and I'm only looking back with wisdom, that every year you are introduced to the next best version of yourself.
Yeah. I love when you say that.
Every year.
Yeah.
So your birthday is actually a death date. And you have to choose whether or not you're going to embrace this new person and let go of the old, or you're going to try to hang on to the old.
Yeah.
So I tell people your birthday is also a funeral. That's when you say goodbye to the old version of you and hello to the new version. However, here's the caveat. You only get 1 year to get to know that iteration of yourself.
Yeah.
So when you turn 21, you have to let go of the 20-year-old and you get 1 year to figure out who this iteration is.
Yeah.
And then when you turn 22, you got to do it every year of your life.
Yeah. How difficult has it been for you to reimagine each year, because you're a woman in ministry and that comes with its own set of clauses, and addendums and all the things that go along with it. How hard has that been to reimagine?
It's easy for me because I know who I am. I'm multi-gifted. I'm a polymath, right? So I have my
People
hands.
don't know what that is, Dr. Trimm.
Multi-gifted. You're multi-gifted, and you have an interest in a lot of subjects, and you're good at a lot of subjects. So growing up, I started out in government. Then I ended up in finance and economics. I ran, along with a team of other economists and financiers, I ran the budget for a nation, for my government, the entire budget. No government department could span without my thumbprint.
Yeah.
But that was in my degree. I wasn't degreed in finances. I wasn't degreed in economics. I remember applying for this position, and one of my colleagues made a bet. They said, I bet you can't get that job. I said, I bet you I can.
Wow.
And it was in an area that I had no training in, finance and economics.
Yeah.
They wanted a minimum of a master's degree, hopefully a PhD. And here I was. At that particular time, I had a degree in theology and a degree in education. So at that time, I had I had an undergrad. So I applied, and they hired me. Everybody else had masters, and they had PhDs, and I outshined them. So I think we limit ourselves because society trains us how to think.
Yeah.
Carter G. Woodson said something. If you can control what a man thinks, you can control what he does.
Yeah.
And if you can control what he does, you can convince him that he is an inferior. And if a man thinks that he's inferior, you don't have to tell him to go here or to go there or to do this or to do that. He would do it himself.
Yeah.
And you don't have to convince him to go to the back door. By his very nature, he will go without being told.
Wow.
And if there be no back door, his very nature will demand one to be made. So poverty was my gift. And growing up without a father was my gift. Why? Because part of my wiring is missing. I never learned how to fear authority. So I never asked permission from anybody to do anything I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I never asked permission. Neither do we. And unless we become everything that God has wired us to be, we cheat the world of our gifts.
Yeah.
So you're not waiting on the world is waiting on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How do we shift our mind? Because you tell in the book Unstoppable, which is such a phenomenal read. I really implore our listeners and our viewers to go get the book. But one of the things you talk about in the book is that story of the windshield, right? And the rear view mirror. And so often, so many of us have this small view of who and how we see our lives because we refuse to see the big view that's right in front of us.
You know, my book. Yes, this is encouraging because sometimes, when you write, you write in a silo
Yeah.
and you have an avatar. My avatar is for women that are gifted and talented, and they're in restrictive environments where people use their gifts again at the expense of their greatness.
Yeah.
And they're Wonder Women.
Yeah.
And I'm going to answer your question in a minute. But I never seen Wonder Women being rescued by Superman.
Yeah.
I never seen that
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
And so I operate in a male dominant industry, from politics to consulting to ministry. So I don't just do ministry. Ministry is about 20% of what I do. The other 80 is raising up thinkers and movers and shakers that were born to change this world and to mentor them into greatness because the world needs them.
Yeah.
So I'm undergirding the next thought leaders and disruptive thinkers, and I'm raising those up with Trimm Institute for Global Leadership. That's what I'm doing right now. But I believe that as women, we have been trained to dumb down, to blend in, to fit in. And we buy into all the sound bites about being this strong black woman. And if you're too strong, men are not going to be attracted to you. And it's all lies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every bit of it is lies. Why? Because we were born as problem solvers. You can't solve a problem if you hide in the bushes in the shadow. You've got to come out and say, I have something to offer. But for the man, this book is good for the man too, to really understand how we think. But when God created the universe, he created two great lights. One was the sun, one was the moon. They were both great. So if I'm the moon and you're the sun, that means, like someone says, I own half the sky. That's number one. But I haven't come to compete with you. I've come to complete you. I've come so that we can collectively and proverbially create light, create rhythm, create season, create time. So we don't compete, we complete. And while we're waiting for Superman to complete our role that we play on planet Earth, and that is to push humanity forward, make this world a better place, we can celebrate the greatness in each one, because I'm not competing with any man. And people interview me all the time. We're man afraid of you. They never wear. Why? Because I brought my feminine energy to bear so that they can understand that my brain was more important than my body.
You talk about this because you got married at 60 years old. Mm-hmm. And I honestly did not want to make the relationship as the basis of this interview, because you've accomplished so much besides getting married. Mm-hmm. Because you said that motherhood and marriage were never going to define you. And you learned that very early on. Mm-hmm. And so the idea of completing someone or having someone to complete you, you said you already come fully assembled and batteries operating.
And batteries included. Yes,
listen,
honey.
You batteries included, honey.
Yes.
Fully assembled.
Yes. Yeah. No baggage.
Yeah.
Not even an overnight case. All I have is a cosmetic case. Yes. But what I think self-mastery is huge. And everyone is talking about not only self-mastery and mindset mastery, but they're talking about self-care. How can you care for a self you don't know?
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't know. And what is self? I call self the sanctuary of God.
Yeah.
Because when you collide with God, you collide with yourself.
Yeah.
You're made after his image, after his likeness. And I ask people all the time, okay, what's wrong with God? Nothing. What's broken with God? Nothing. So if you're made after his image and after his likeness, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
The real. So you've got to cast off all of the stuff that was superimposed upon you through socialization, through education, through all of the relationship constellations that you created with frenemies. And I call them friends of and enemies of. You have to cast all of that off
Yeah.
to discover who you really are. And she's hidden in there.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes that knock in the head.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes, like for me, being rejected in front of your face and being abandoned. It's one thing to grow up knowing that your father didn't want you, but then to have the experience that says, I see you as a non-entity. It's another thing to have that experience. But again, you control the narrative.
Yeah.
So when I discovered that I've been winning, I've been unstoppable. Before I had hands and feet and legs and arms and a chest and a brain, when 23 chromosomes were divinely led to collide with 23 chromosomes from my father, 23 chromosomes to my mother, there were almost 500,000 other me's. And I outswam them all. I outperformed them. So if I could do that without a brain, without hands, without legs, without feet, if I could do that
Yeah.
without all of that,
Yeah.
the day that I was conceived, I was already unstoppable.
Yeah.
But when I was born, the day I was born asking and demanding what I needed.
Yeah.
I demanded it. And that first day, whoever was assigned to give me that white milky stuff to make the pain go away in my stomach, I had no articulation for it, but I had a voice. And I screamed the room down, the house down, the hospital down, until whoever was assigned to bring me the resources showed up in my vicinity.
Yeah.
The biggest question is, when did we lose our voice?
Yeah.
And self-mastery is the art of finding your voice again.
Yeah. Finding your voice.
Find your voice.
You found your voice at different points along the way, but with the amount of wisdom that you have accumulated over this journey, where were the other points where you felt like you lost your voice and you had to regain it again?
It's a good question. When I retired at 32.
You retired at 32.
I retired at 32. When I retired at 32, and this is a real sensitive story, I turned to an organization, without calling the name of that organization. I turned to that organization to help me to define my next. And what they instructed me to do is to start all over again. And I regret that. I regret that I listened, because up until that point, up until 32, it was God who was leading me, and I was listening to him. I call it the God whispers and the God winks. So it was God uploading what he had put in my DNA. He uploads and we feel it. We feel it as a prompting or something we have to do, or we see an open door of opportunity and you feel like you got to go through that door, or you got to do something, you got to write something. We call it desires.
Yeah.
But God gives you the desire to desire the desire you desire.
Yeah.
So that when you desire that desire, he gives you that. And so it's the God whisper. Even if a person is non-religious, I could still talk to them like this.
Yeah.
So I allowed, for the first time in my life, someone to say, this is what you should do. And I was already here, and I should have went here. My climb should have been upward. But I allow a person to say, you need to be here. So I hit this hard reset when I shouldn't have. And it took me years to climb back to where I was.
Oh, wow.
And then to start from that point. So that's why this season in my life is so important, because this is where I was 32 years ago. It was 32 years ago.
Wow. Really?
So this is where I was 33 years. This is where I was where I am today is where I was 33 years ago. And I allowed someone who I regarded as an authority to become an authority over my life. So then I had to take my personal power back. I didn't even know that I had given it away. I had no knowledge. And that's why I'm mentoring the next great leaders and thought leaders that are younger than me. I'm mentoring them now because I don't want them to do what I did 33 years ago. I wouldn't have been just running a country. I would have been running the world. So if I had me in my life at 17, then what I was doing at 32, I would have started doing it so much younger.
Yeah.
But that's what experience is all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
You learn back, but you lean forward. So this is me leaning forward, but taking what I learned backwards and just wrapping it up as wisdom. And preferably the next generation of women in leadership can quantum leap. I want them to quantum leap and not to wait. There's nothing to wait for. The world is waiting for them. And put all their beauty and their gifts and their personality. A lot of women have big personalities, and people that live in the realm of mediocrity tell them that they're too much.
Yeah.
So then they relegate themselves to the familiar and the comfortable. But familiarity is where your dreams go to die.
Yeah.
And comfort is where you shoot your potential at point blank range. So if a person has someone in their lives that refuses to allow them to be comfortable with where they are, that person becomes their gift. And if they don't listen to God saying, okay, go to the next level, that's where crises happen. That's where problems happens. So problems and crises is your learned professors that is trying to teach you to look within and go ahead and, run after your dreams like it's the last bus at night and not ask for permission to do it.
Run towards your dreams like it's the last bus at night. I mean, I have to wonder though, with you raising this next generation of thought leaders and change makers and thinkers and problem solvers, what is that common thread that you see through everybody who you're encountering on this journey?
Greatness. They have greatness in them. They're born to do something great, to be great, but they are afraid of being rejected.
Oh,
because they
goodness,
know the pain of rejection. So they try to navigate, but anyone that has ever done anything great has to deal with the whole aspect of rejection. But rejection has to be reframed. Rejection is redirection. And rejection is a confirmation that you have outgrown a realm or relationship. You've outgrown it. And you just need to move on. And because you didn't move on, then rejection happens. It's sort of like kicks you in the behind.
Yeah.
And says, get out of here.
Yeah.
There was this gentleman that played a violin. He took this very expensive violin. It was multi-million-dollar violin. He went in New York City. He's the best violinist and he in the world. And he played in New York City. And he ended up at the end of the day with $25. But the night before, he made millions. Why? Because he wasn't in the right place.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're in relationships, we're in jobs, we're amongst people, and they don't have the capacity to identify your worth. They don't. It doesn't mean anything is wrong with them. There's something wrong with you because you refuse to put yourself in where you see yourself.
Yeah.
You refuse to just remove yourself from where you are and go where you are going to be celebrated and not tolerated. So rejection just kicks you in the behind
Yeah.
and says, "Get going,
Yeah.
get going. You're too big for this." The last story, a man was teaching his son about self-worth. And he said, "Take this rock and go down to the market and see how much they'll give you for the rock. Don't sell it, bring it back to me." So he came back and said, "Daddy, Daddy," they said $10. He said, "Fine. I want you to go down to the jeweler, find out how much they would pay." So the jeweler looked and said, "I'll give you $100,000 for this." So he said, "Daddy, Daddy, we should sell it." He said, "Wait 1 minute. I want you to go down to the rear collector." The rear collector looked at this rock and he said, "I'll give you $10 million. And he came back and he said, "You feel about yourself because you put yourself in a place that either values you or don't values you. So the problem is not with the rock. The problem is where you place the rock.
Yeah.
And that's us. Sometimes we place ourselves in positions and relationships and jobs because we don't know who we are. And that's self-worth. And that's a part of self-mastery. Self-mastery starts with self-awareness, knowing where you end and someone else begins. And then it goes into self-knowledge. And you keep going until you finally have self-actualization.
Yeah.
But a part of that in between there is self-worth. And you have to ask yourself this question: do I feel worthy? Do I feel worthy of being loved, treated, living in a mansion? Am I worthy? Do I feel that I'm not worthy of it? But unless you make the unconscious conscious, it'll continue to control your life. And you'll call it destiny, and this is as good as it gets. But you don't have to become a victim of something that's going on beneath the surface. And to take something that is deep and make it as simple as I possibly can. The conscious mind is responsible for 5% of your behavior. The unconscious is responsible for 95%. But here's the caveat. The conscious mind also creates the unconscious mind.
Yeah.
So you don't have to spend the rest of your life sitting in therapy. Because what's going on in the conscious is contained in only approximately 10% of your brain, because the average person only uses 10% of your capacity. So if all of your hurt and pain is in this 10%, you got 90% that has never been used, never been hurt, never been abused, never been kicked, never been rejected. So after you finish your therapy, you could rewire that 10%, or you could fire this up. And how do you do it? It's easy. You go back to that 5% and feed it vision. What do you want? Feed it the vision. Decree it, declare it. And it will take care of the 95%, or 90%, which is responsible for 95% of what's going on. And I just took epigenetics and everything else, neuroscience, and made it very simple. And that includes intergenerational trauma.
Yeah.
And I just took something very complex, made it very simple. Is as easy as that and simple as that.
So you said intergenerational trauma. As you've been in ministry for a number of years, and most people come to certain ministries when they feel the brokenness, the rejection, the hurt, the pain. And so how do you teach people how to rewire through ministry, through biblical teaching? How do you get people to learn and relearn and unlearn?
There's an author, James Allen, that wrote As a Man Thinketh.
Yeah.
And it came from the Bible. Came from something that King Solomon had wrote. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And you don't need a degree to think. It's free. Education has taught us what to think, but not how to think. So we just need to learn how to think. And once you learn how to think, then you are always one thought away from living the life of your dream. The 5 people closest to you are actually prophesying your destiny. That's one of the things that I teach. So if the 5 people are poor, you're going to be the 6th. If the 5 people are entrepreneurs, you're going to be the 6th. If the 5 people are millionaires, you're going to be 6th. You choose your social capital. You choose your relationships.
Yeah.
And the first relationship you need to have is one with yourself.
Yeah.
So what do you do in your alone time? When you're alone, the biggest question is, do you like the person that you're alone with? Do you believe that person? Do you trust that person?
Most people don't, Dr. Trimm. They
They
don't
don't.
like being alone.
Because between the ages of 0 and 6, where their belief system was being formed, when we were just spectators, we were not participators, where our frontal lobe was not even fully developed, so we couldn't make decisions for ourselves. That's when the belief about ourselves was formed, and it's unconscious. So we are taught to admire everybody else in the books, to admire the best, artist and the best dancer, and we want to be like them. You want to be like yourself.
Yeah.
So spend me moments, spend time with the most incredible person you have in your social constellation, and that is you.
Yeah.
And you just work with you. How do you work with you? Well, you start reading what God says about you. And they say, fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it. And faking it is called faith. Faith is faking it till you make it. But what if you put that energy into just faking it till you make it, AKA faith? I'm going to show up by faith, being this amazing human being that God said that I am. Eventually, you are rewiring your brain. You're changing the very neurological pathways in your brain. You could do it on a daily basis by what you put in front of you. And that's where I learned the law of affirmation, the law of declaration. I teach people, thou shalt decree a thing and it shall be established. You're the authority over your life. You're the authority over your destiny. And if you can just get it out of your mouth, and to break it down even simpler, what is a sentence? We learned that a sentence has a noun and a verb, and it's a group of words that completes itself. That's what we learned. We learned that it forms a declaration or an explanation or a command or a mandate. But there's another definition of sentence, and that is someone who has authority relegating you by way of a judgment to serve time. So serving time means that you're a slave of time. So you have to show up in the world saying, I'm not a slave of time. Time is my slave. And it's the social as well as spiritual capital that puts us all on the same playing field.
Yeah.
Oprah doesn't have more time
Yeah.
than what the girl next door does.
Yeah.
We all have 24 hours. What are you doing with your time, number one? And number two, if you're the authority in your life, then whatever you say will relegate you to serving as a prisoner of that particular declaration.
Yeah.
So I was in poverty, and I just started to say, I'm rich. Wealth and riches shall be in my house. I'll never be broke another day in my life. I began to decree certain things over my life. And guess what? I'm living it.
Yeah.
I'm walking it. And now it's internal. It's programmed so that my internal dialogue, which is called a thought, my internal dialogue aligns with my verbal affirmation. You have to have perfect alignment there. So you say it until it becomes second nature, until that's how you think, that's how you feel, And then you welcome every experience as the manifestation of an internal dialogue or an external declaration. So when you say, she makes me sick, you got to change that. Nobody makes you anything because you will be sick. I'm sick and tired. You don't want to be sick and tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want all of that. What do you want?
Yeah.
I know I got married late in life. I'm still learning what it means to be a married woman. Because my husband tells me, you realize you're married. You're not a single woman anymore. So I have to still practice that.
Is that because you're like,
But
you live your own life? You're like, I got my own
but
schedule.
but I realize, and he's a good man. He can
Yeah.
accommodate me. But I realize that no matter what's going on with my husband, that has nothing to do with me. I know where I am, and he begins.
Yeah. Yeah.
Has nothing to do with anybody around you.
Yeah.
Doesn't have the power to dictate how you feel about yourself and how you perform unless you give your personal power away.
Yeah.
And if you gave it away, take it back.
Yeah.
So, I live in this environment and this person doesn't do anything for me. Well, what are you doing for yourself?
Yeah.
And this person is doing that has nothing to do with you. When people tell me, "Oh, this person doesn't like me, this person is trying to stop me," I said, "You're just looking for an excuse. Either you're going to make it happen, or you're going to make an excuse."
Yeah.
So now you're just making this excuse
Yeah.
because you're afraid of your greatness. You're afraid of success. Because with success comes responsibility, and you don't want to take the responsibility. So everything that you're saying is all learned. And if you learned it, you can unlearn it.
Yeah.
What does your boss have to do with you becoming financially independent?
Yeah.
What? He hired you to make him rich.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why can't you hire yourself?
Yeah.
So some of you need to fire your job and go to work. Work it out.
You have a rule. You don't hire your family.
No.
You said relationships have to have structure. They have to have some fundamental rules put in place. And you learned along the way that hiring your family was not something.
Not something
Because you have
do.
to make a decision about the relationship.
Yep.
Whether it be transactional.
Yep.
Yeah.
All relationships are transactional. Every relationship, there are 12 bands of relationship. And every relationship has rules, roles, responsibilities, expectations, and definitions. And if you don't stick to the rules of engagement for that band, you're violating it. So there are strict boundaries that you have to respect, you have to honor. I don't go into business with my husband. Why? He's my husband, and there's a rule of engagement for that relationship.
Yeah.
I don't go into business with friends. Why? Because there's a rule of engagement for business, partnership, and then there's a rule of engagement for friendship. So if I go into business with you, now you're my business partner. You can't talk to me about hurting your feelings as a friend. So we have to determine if I hired a family member, they have to call me Dr. Trimm. And then they cannot talk to me at a family gathering or a picnic about how I hurt their feelings.
Yeah.
Because now you're violating a boundary. And we have so many people that are boundary crossers
Yeah.
and boundary violators. You have to be strict with your boundaries.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very strict with my boundaries. I don't have to tell people, okay, this is where I put you. You're an enemy of. If they're a friend and you think I'm your friend, but in my mind, you have violated too many boundaries, so I put you way out there, enemy of. You're an enemy of my peace, my prosperity. You're an enemy of, my success. You're an enemy of my time. I'm going to make you an enemy. But that's for me to manage, not for anybody else. So every relationship is transactional. I say even abusive relationships. Both parties are getting something out of it. And then when you decide that I'm worth more, that's when you're going to change.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people that go back and back and back to abusive relationships. And you wonder why. Psychologically, they're getting something out of it. Maybe it's affirming that you're not worthy. It's still transactional, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it may be unconscious. So unless you make the unconscious conscious, it'll continue to control your life. And that's why therapy is important.
Yeah. Yeah. You said affirming because you said that was one of the reasons why you married your husband. He affirmed you, and that was what you were looking for. You didn't want to marry for charm. You married for character. And so with that affirming, he had the capacity for who you are, but who you would become.
Both.
Yeah.
You have to affirm. I wasn't looking for confirmation. I already knew who I was. I needed to be affirmed at that level. Like, I see you. And a lot of people don't see us.
Girl, this is why I told my team that you might be my marriage mentor. You know what I'm saying, Dr. Trimm? I said, because that's what I need. You know what I'm saying? I need somebody to affirm me. Amen? Yes.
Affirm your strength.
Yeah, that's it.
And we
Yeah.
all have limitations, right?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
tell people, stop talking about weakness. You have limitations.
Yeah, yeah.
We all have limitations, no weakness, but just limitations. And it could be because you have no interest, you have no training, but these are your limitations. You need someone to compliment you
Absolutely.
at the level of your limitations and affirm your strengths. You need that affirmation. And if you have a partner or a friend that doesn't affirm it and wants you to change, you have an enemy. You have an enemy of your identity. You have an enemy of your authenticity. That's your enemy. I'm not going to be who you want me to be. With my husband and I, when we dated, we had a come to Jesus moment.
You said this. Yeah, yeah,
Honey,
yeah.
yes. What do you expect of me as a wife, which is a role? Because if I divorce, I no longer play that role. So I cannot connect my identity to a role.
Ooh, that's, you know what? That's gonna save some people, Dr. Trimm. You just broke some people free with that one. That's a role.
That's a role I play.
Yeah.
So in this role as your wife, what do you expect from me? But there's a different question. What do you expect from me as a woman? Those are two different questions. Then I said, this is what I expect from you, bruh, as a husband. But this is what I expect from you as a man. Two different conversations.
Yeah.
Now, when we get married, these rules of engagement are not going to be changing.
Yeah.
They are non-negotiable. So give me your wish list before I marry you. So he had to remember now, I'm not a domestic engineer. I may not cook every night. I'm the make it happen girl. You want to eat? What do you want to eat, baby? Roast chicken? I'm going to make it happen.
I love that because
Uber Eats.
listen, because your husband, this is his second marriage. He was married for 40 years. His wife passed away of cancer. And so you knew that, one, he already had, you know.
You were firstly, you impress me. You have 100% recall. You're a genius.
Thank you. You heard it first, baby. Let's go.
You are an absolute genius.
You see me. Come on, girl.
I see you. I see this institution. I see, like, you know how Chanel, she lived as an individual, she died as an institution. You are living as an individual, but baby, you gonna die as an institution.
Yeah.
We're gonna institutionalize this gift of a genius.
Thank you.
You're an absolute genius. I was saying the other day, Maya Angelou has passed. Who's going to take that place? Who's going to carry on that legacy? And that's you. All day long.
Thank you.
Activist, poet, brilliant mind, brilliant voice. You're going to carry on her legacy. Shirley Chisholm.
All the rock stars for me.
You're going to carry on their legacy. And we can't afford to allow it to die.
Yeah.
These are strong women of color.
Yeah.
And you're going to carry on such a rich heritage, starting with the last pharaoh. The last pharaoh was Cleopatra, was a woman back in the day. Yeah. And if she could hold it down as a woman of color. You know why we have immigrants? We have immigration because there is an element of genius and wisdom that is missing within a zip code, and God imports that person.
Wow.
So we all were imported to the United States of America.
Come on now.
Because what we were carrying didn't exist.
Yeah.
And we were the ones to bring it.
Yeah, absolutely. 1,000%.
We're gonna carry on the legacy.
Yeah.
Being pro-black doesn't mean you're anti-white.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're anti-anything.
Yeah.
It means that you love who God made you.
Yeah.
And you put that on display.
I just knew you were going to come over here and sit in this seat and read me. I just knew it. I felt it when I was preparing. I said, oh, Lord, I already know her Wi-Fi be on, baby. Them antennas be up. I said, she going to come over here and read me down, honey.
And you know something? I appreciate everybody else's celebration of who we are. But if they never celebrate it, we're celebrating ourselves.
Yeah. Thank you.
We never celebrate it.
Yeah.
We're celebrating ourselves.
Yeah.
We can have our own party. I tell my husband every day, I wake up, I throw a party every day.
Yeah.
You're invited to it. But just because it's raining on your parade,
honey,
it don't mean it's raining on mine.
Yeah.
So I calibrate the atmosphere in my house. I calibrate it. And you're invited every day to be a part of it.
I want to know, though, because you have moved with such grace around the world. I mean, you've done things that most people, they have no idea. All the lands that you've touched, all the people, all the spaces, all the philanthropy where your hand has touched. What has probably been the most valuable key that you've taken with you on every part of the journey?
How important it is for each person to see themselves as just a ripple in a big sea of humanity.
A ripple.
Yes, it's a ripple effect. But one ripple can reach a tidal wave of positive change if we only showed up as that ripple.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is just a piece of the puzzle. What you're doing is another piece. What your father is doing. I love him. That's another. Tell him I'm his greatest fan. He's the drum major. I'm the cheerleader. But I'm doing my cheers.
Yeah.
But if all of us showed up, it's just a little ripple.
Yeah.
We can create just a tidal wave of positive change. I learned what's wrong with the world is me.
Mm-hmm.
But what's right with it is me as well.
Yeah.
And if I show up 100% as everything that God has made me to be and give that to the world, I potentially can make a difference. And if I inspire others to do the same, just by being me, if I can be that inspiration to a handful of people, and they're an inspiration to another handful of people, it's just a matter of time that we make this world a better place and that we can leave this world as a better place than what we were born into and leave that as a legacy for the next generation. So as I travel, I'm going to run my play, no matter how small and insignificant it is. My mother raised 7 children by herself in abject poverty. And the world probably would never have known her. But she raised me.
Yeah.
She ran her play.
Yeah.
So we never compare ourselves with anyone. You know, we just don't do it. We don't wish to be something else or someone else and wish that our lives were different. My mother ran her play.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Who was Albert Einstein's mother? She ran her play.
Yeah.
Who was Mozart's mother? She ran her play. And this is an ode to women. Name me one governor, one president, one prime minister, one artist that didn't come through a womb of a woman.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe when we heal the world, we start with the woman. And if we heal the woman, we potentially can heal everybody and everything that she touches.
Absolutely.
It's not at the expense of man. This is not a feminist movement. This is a humanity movement.
Yeah.
Because we've been broken and hurt and bruised.
Yeah.
But if the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world, what happens to the world if she remains broken?
Yeah.
So let's just heal the hand.
Let's heal the hand. As we close out this interview, Dr. Trimm, one word you're committed to in this season of your life.
Serving. It's the word.
Yeah.
Serving humanity. That's what I'm here to do. Serving you.
Yeah.
Serving the world. Whoever comes in my space, just serve them. It could be a smile. I do one kind act every single day of my life.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
Pay for someone's bill, give up a first class seat on an airplane. I do a kind act. It could be a smile. It could be, I see you. It could be a thank you. It could be, I went to Burger King and I had this veggie sandwich and I noticed all the people that were in the back cooking. And I asked them to do something and they had this big attitude. They were mad. It was big. You could feel it. That didn't change me. I acknowledged them. So I lined up 4 $5 bills, because that's all the change that I had, $20. Lined them up for 4 of them that was in the back. And I said, thank you for doing such a great job. And their whole persona and emotions changed. Just a kind act.
Yeah. Service.
It doesn't have to be money. It could be a smile. Just saying, I see you and it matters. Serving humanity with whatever I have. And that's my word.
Yeah. Dr. Trimm, I see you. Thank you for coming to Vault Empowers Talks. Just an honor. You have such, you walked in here with the spirit. I'm going to leave out here with it. It's contagious. It's
Amen.
a ripple effect. And so I thank you today for your time. Vault Empowers Talks. That was another good one. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button before you leave. Be sure to share this with someone else who may need this type of service in their life. Until next time, I'm your host, Brandy Harvey. Eat well, give a damn, move your body every single day. Peace.